Floods, ice, and something buried that wasn't gold turned the search for treasure into a muddy mess full of secrets. Machines sank, pumps disappeared, and millions of dollars were almost lost in a pit that wouldn't stop flooding. Let us take you to the moment Parker's excavator hit something smooth, strange, and not of this time. Parker Schnabel had been chasing a big claim for years. Now he had one. Everyone thought he would be excited, but Parker knew this land was going to be a lot of trouble. Of ice floods and old bones, really old bones, and something waiting deep below the surface, something that should have never been disturbed. At first it was all about that sweet yellow metal. But as the excavator chewed through a frozen spot, it hit something solid, not rock or junk, that was smooth, curved, and stuck in hard ice. The crew dragged it out and cleaned it, not shiny, not metal. It was a woolly mammoth tusk that was thousands of years old and still felt so new that it made the hairs on your arms stand on end. It wasn't the only one, the land held more secrets. Parker didn't rush to sell the ivory because he didn't want the mountain of paperwork that came with it. He wanted the story, so he kept the tusks, cleaned them up, and put them in his private collection next to huge teeth and other strange things. These weren't just decorations, they were proof that the land held more than just gold. But the dirt wasn't done surprising him. In another dig, Tony Beats pulled one out of another site that looked like a jawbone at first, but it was actually another tusk. Other crews were finding the same strange things. These things were older than any coin or gear they were looking for. Gold was the goal, but what time had buried was the real treasure. Later, in Australia, Parker found a copy of the biggest gold nugget ever found. It was called the Welcome Stranger, and it was so big that old-timers actually called it that. 2 copies of the real one are still around, but the real one has been melted down into bars for a long time. That moment reminded Parker that this game was about chasing legendary things. Then the real mess started. At a place called the Wolf Cut, Parker thought he had found the jackpot. Millions of dollars were waiting underground. The good thing about where the pump is now is that it's high enough to be dry and the suction hose should still be deep enough in the water in case that breaks over there. It started as a small trickle and some mud, but the ground was ready to fight back. Pumps stopped working, and the whole thing turned into a lake. Machines got stuck, pay dirt was buried, and millions of dollars were lost. Parker wasn't even there when it happened, but his crew rushed to fix the problem. They brought in more pumps, ran hoses, and dug a deep hole to drain the water. For a while, it looked like they had it under control, but the ground had other ideas. The frozen dirt was stopping the water. It was like someone unplugged a dam and water came pouring in. 3 pumps worked all night and got rid of 10 million gallons, but it wasn't enough. When they woke up the next morning, the main pump was gone. It had sunk under 4 feet of water, and someone had to paddle across to pull it out. Parker was trying to reach a 30-foot deep pay layer, but they had to cut through frozen mud on the edge of an old pond. Every scoop brought more water, and every hour they lost more money. One problem was fixed, and another. One wall broke, then the pump, then the other wall. The team pushed as the hours went by, hoping to get more than 1,000 ounces, which is more than $14 million. One mistake could ruin the whole season. Then they hit gold, not just a few ounces, but a full-on streak of gold that makes crews forget about the cold. It almost changed everything, because even with that win, Parker still owed $15 million to the machine's fuel repairs crew for every mistake. Winter was coming quickly. Parker's right-hand man Tyson had to move the 90,000-pound wash plant uphill and back down again before the sun came up. There was no room for error, and Tyson barely managed it. The job showed how close everything was to falling apart. One bolt broke, one wrong move, and it was all over. Once they started digging again, the gold started coming in over 8,000 ounces, which was worth $14 million, a huge haul. But every hour was still a gamble. That season wasn't just about shiny rocks, it was a war against cold, wet ground, time, and... In his search for gold, Parker really learned how crazy mining can get. The deeper they dug, the more the ground pushed back. Ice turned to mud, and mud turned to rivers. Pumps ran all night and day, and the crew looked like zombies, tired, dirty, and locked in. Some days they drained 10 million gallons just to keep digging, and other days they watched it flood back in. And just when things looked stable, another disaster struck. The wash plant site got soggy, and the machine started sinking. The crew had to drag in wood to keep it from falling over Tyson and the rest of the. There were no breaks or shortcuts for the team. They worked non-stop until they hit gold before the ground frozen solid. When they finally stood next to the clean-out tray and saw the pile of gold, there were no cheers. Instead, there were quiet looks of relief, exhaustion, or even shock. "You know, I just got the 750 back, which is the best news I've had all week. That means I can turn this wash plant back up and we can get back to running 220 yards an hour." The season's total was 8,118 ounces, which is $14 million worth of gold. But Parker also had. He put $364,000 worth of gold on the line when he moved the wash plant and took a chance. It paid off, but he was still in debt because every machine needed fixing and every crew member needed to be paid. The operation was huge, the pressure was even higher, and he was still looking for more. In the Dominion claim, Parker had another big shot, but the land was rough, it was hot, and everyone was on edge. They were planning to move the plant again, and Tyson set the goal of getting it up and running before the next sunrise. They had one machine that weighed more than 90,000 pounds. A big excavator to move pieces up a steep hill. It wasn't easy or safe, but they got it done. Piece by piece, they put it back together. The conveyor hopper frame and everything else had to be perfect. Once it was standing tall on its new pad, the crew took a deep breath and felt ready for the first time in weeks. The next load of pay dirt was just waiting to be washed. With $364,000 sitting in gold and everything in order again, all eyes were on Parker. The gold was there, but could he keep it coming? Just when Parker thought the storm was over, someone else did something that shook the mining world. Someone named Todd Hoffman just broke some big news. He bought a new gold mine in the Yukon. Yes, that's right, way up there in the cold, wild place where you can lose a boot and $1 million before lunch. The internet didn't waste any time speculating that Todd might be planning another run for the camera, a comeback with a new crew and a bunch of broken machines in the middle of nowhere. Maybe Todd wasn't just a background guy on that gold rush after all. Before the cameras even started rolling, it was his idea to go after shiny dirt in Alaska with his father Jack and get a crew to film it. From the first episode to the 8th season, that guy was in the spotlight, making big plans and running into even bigger problems. There were some winds of change, but there were also disasters you could feel through the TV screen. Claims that fell through faster than a puddle in the sun. Machines that coughed their last breath halfway through the job. Fights with yelling. Some people cheered for him, others rolled their eyes, but they kept watching, and a lot of them stayed even after he left the set. When Todd left after season 8, the show changed. Fans noticed that it lost its rough and tumble energy. They missed seeing the Hoffman family rolling through ice and mud like a gold-hungry circus act. But a couple of years later, Todd came back and said, "All right, Dad. Why don't you guys get ready for the very last cleanup? We're going to be pulling mats and bringing them up." Again, he tried to save another crumbling mine with a new show called Hoffman Family Gold. It ran for 3 seasons and ended in the summer of 2024. The last nail was a short post online that disappeared faster than snow in spring. Todd said the network let their deal run out. That was it. No more filming, no more crew. No one knows the real story. Maybe ratings dropped too low. Maybe Todd wanted more control behind the scenes. Maybe someone just didn't care. Wanting another season of broken dreams and busted excavators doesn't really change anything. The show ended, but Todd didn't. He kept looking for gold. In late March 2025, he went public again and said he had found a gold mine in the Yukon and might be thinking about getting another one. This was not a vague hint. That was all it took for the rumors to start flying. People started to wonder if he was just mining or if the cameras were just clearing out for another season. Some fans cheered, "Bring back the crew, bring back the chaos." Others looked more closely. Paying for all of this doesn't come cheap. Moving dirt in that cold doesn't come cheap either. Maybe he found investors. Maybe the TV people are talking again. Or maybe he hit it big with one of his side projects. People dream about the Yukon, but it's not easy. It's full of old stories and way harder than it looks. Snow comes early, roads disappear, and everything costs a lot. If Todd moves up there, he's not just chasing sparkly rocks, he's committing to freezing wind, strict rules, and huge bills. And Todd hasn't been quiet. Flying over large areas of land with no voiceover, just a shaky camera posting here and there about plans and dreams, but never the whole picture. Last month, someone saw him looking at a bulldozer. He wasn't just looking around, he was looking serious. Shift means even longer, hard hours at night. They're tired, they're worn out. But we have to keep pushing all the way to the goal, especially since our equipment keeps breaking down and we're losing hours. That kind of window shopping usually means work is coming. People remember his father Jack and his longtime partner Dave. They were two of the people who made the first show so popular. If Todd can get them together again, things might get louder. Still, some people don't forget the crazy moves, the big promises that didn't come true, or the trips to faraway places that turned into expensive vacations with nothing to show for them. Guyana still makes people laugh, or groan that one was nothing but a gold-seeking disaster, but people couldn't stop watching it. No one watches TV for boring spreadsheets and meetings, they want to see trucks stuck in mud hoping to ride on the last gallon of gas. That's what got people talking. Some fans even made jokes, maybe Parker Schnabel sold some rusty equipment at a sky-high price. Others said that Todd's fame came from doing something completely crazy, like selling t-shirts or dropping music albums. People online love making up stories. No official word from the TV show yet. It's hard to miss the smoke when Todd Hoffman brings back the whole crew and a camera is pointed at the Yukon dirt. Todd's still got that spark, his name alone draws people in, whether they love him or don't. He makes noise and swings hard, whether he's winning gold or dragging a dead dozer through frozen ground. People watch not because it's always pretty, but because it's never boring. For now, all that's known is that Todd Hoffman bought a new mine, and maybe another one is on the way. While the big names got all the attention, one man worked hard behind the scenes until it all hit him, Mike, the son who stayed in the cab. Mike has been hauling rock and fixing gear since he was a teenager, and it wasn't at a backyard job either. It was Yukon level, freezing cold machine busting gold mining, and you'd hardly know it. While his sister and brother moved up, Mike stayed where the dirt hits the boots. Always behind the scenes, always under the heavy shadow of his father. His father was a giant in the mining world, he ran huge sites, made lots of money, and barking orders like a drill sergeant. Everyone knows the name loud, and he's worth more than $15 million. Mike makes about $500,000 a year, which sounds like a lot, but it's nothing compared to the old man's wealth. And that's before you add in what his siblings make from running the business side. Mike never chased the spotlight. While others tried to get attention, Mike stayed in the cab of those big rigs moving dirt and tons of gravel. He could drive anything, fix almost anything, and make sure the crew never fell behind. Are you okay, Mikey? I'm fine. I'm fine. Can someone go get my dad? Go call my dad, because this is a real problem? But skill didn't mean less pressure. His dad ran things tight. Mistakes were not tolerated. The pressure hit hardest in silence. His father's calls would go unanswered. Not because of a bad signal, just no answer. One day when Mike's machine broke down, his father called him twice, but Mike didn't answer. Finally, someone yelled loudly and sharply, and Mike's voice said, "I'm not interested." Cameras rolled, but Mike snapped and told the crew to back off. He wasn't playing a part. Later, Mike was moving a wash plant, a beast of a machine weighing more than 25 tons, and tried to handle a tight curve. The plant tipped, dust flew, steel crashed, and the whole thing slammed into the ground. The crew jumped in to film it, but Mike wasn't having any of it. He told them, "Touch that camera and it